So before I begin, can everyone hear my voice okay? And everyone can see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, my name is Adam from Inflectra, for those who haven't met me before, and it's my privilege today to demonstrate the new manual testing capabilities of Rapise. And for those who don't know the products, Rapise is our test automation system that integrates with SpiraTest. And the original functionality of Rapise was to allow you to do automated testing, recording an application, building a script, playing it back. And we'll have some future webinars that will discuss that. We can talk about mobile and web testing, and this will be the subject of some future webinars. And this webinar is the first in a series. We're planning on doing them every couple of weeks, focusing on a different part of SpiraTeam and a different part of Rapise. So if you like what you hear today, please let us know. And also, if there's any areas of the system you'd like us to focus on, let us know through email at the sales@inflectra.com or support, and we're happy to include that in our series. Already things like mobile testing, custom reporting are planned. Anyway, as I was saying, Rapise was originally designed for automated testing, but in the latest version, we decided it made sense to add some manual functionality, and the reason and the purpose for this functionality is to speed up the generation of test cases. So as an example, if I was to create a test case using SpiraTest, I would go into the system, and I would go insert test case, and from there I can create a manual test case. So we'll call it manual test case 1. And if I click on that, if I wanted to describe the testing, I would go in here and I would say insert step, and I would say something like open up the application. So let's say we're going to test this calculator application that comes with Windows. We would say open up the application, MS Calc, and the expected result will be the application loads. And maybe we want to describe what we're going to do, so we'd say click on button 1, and then we'd maybe want to say that 1 appears in the screen. And if we wanted to take a screenshot of that to show them what we're doing, we could use the screenshot feature. We could update that and add an attachment. And we could say, for example, let's add an attachment, get a screenshot. We could go into the calculator application, and we could use the option to take the screenshot, and we could paste that in. And we did upload. Okay, and we could go back. And we could, and so that and that took about maybe 4 or 5 seconds, maybe half a minute to do, and that's just for 1 or 2 steps. And if you can imagine, building out a test case that way, particularly if you want to include screenshots, is very laborious. So we decided, based on feedback, that it made a lot of sense to try and accelerate that process. So using Rapise to do the same thing, we'll get to see how much faster it can be and the advantages we get. So we're going now into Rapise, which we've installed, and ahead of time, we have configured it. We've gone into the options, we've gone into the tools, Spira connection, we've pointed at our SpiraTeam instance, we set up a folder on our local drive where we're going to store everything. We've also set up the machine that we're running on so that it knows the machine name, and we've given it a login and password. We've done all that already. Okay, just to make sure you're aware of what we did. Now what we're going to do is create a new test case. So inside of Rapise, in the latest version, we decided it made sense to increase the integration with SpiraTest or SpiraTeam right from the beginning, so that now when you go File, Create New Test, that's fine, it's going to give us the option to create the test case in SpiraTeam or SpiraTest right from the beginning. And so what we're going to do is create a new test case. So we'll go into the folder we want to create it in, and we'll say New Test Case. And we're going to call it Test Calculator 2. Once that's done, we can then say Create from Spira. And now we have a test case. This test case, by default, has an automation section. So if I click on the link, I will see the automated test case. And that's where the automation side of Rapise will be used. But we're going to focus today on the manual side. But before I go any further, are there any questions? Okay. So that now we've created the test case, we now want to interact with the manual side of it. So to do that, we click on the manual steps link in Rapise. And what this will do is bring the manual test editor. This manual test editor is very similar to the one you have in SpiraTeam. Looks like this. And if you're just going to record manual test cases by typing them in step by step, it's very similar. There's not a huge difference. But there's one really really powerful feature that really makes this really easy to use, and I think a really good improvement is that you can actually record a manual test case. So using the built-in recorder that Rapise already had to do automated testing, we're going to leverage that functionality and allow us to record a manual test case. One of the really important things you're going to want to do there before you start recording is decide though which elements of the screen you want to capture. So we've got the option enabled to record screenshots. That's going to record the whole application each time. Sometimes that's very useful, but sometimes that may be too much. And so there is the option to turn that off. And now it's going to record just the individual element we click on. And you have that choice. And we're also going to include the cursor so you can see what I'm pointing at. Okay, now that that's done, we're going to start the recording. So I click on Record Manual. And using the built-in recorder that comes with Rapise, we're going to basically choose the application. And it could be a web application, a Windows application. It could be any of the different apps that we support. So let's go choose the calculator right here. Hit select. And now it's going to record the interactions. So I'll do it slowly so you can see what's going on. I'm going to do a simple test. I'm going to ask it to do 4 plus 5 equals, and then we're going to verify that the answer is 9. So I'll do Control-1, which you can see here, to verify. Value is 9. Okay. And then I hit Clear. Then I hit Finish. Oops. And there you go. We've now got a test case. And what it's done is it's taken the description of what I did and it's put that into my description box, and it reads the items on the screen to build this for you. And then on the expected result, it's taken a screenshot of what image it saw at that point. In the sample data column, it puts in essentially what the automated script would look like were you doing automation. And that's not going to be used by Rapise, but it's there as a reference. And that can be handy, and we'll see why later. So now we've got a test case. Now, this test case may not be exactly perfect. It's reading what's on the screen. Sometimes the buttons on the screen may have labels that are not entirely clear, and so you might want to make some changes. So verify that value equals 9. Maybe that's a bit unclear. So we can go into using the editor functionality. And there's a full test step editor directly in Rapise, so we can say, maybe say that to verify that, the result of the calculation is 9. Equals 9. That's a bit more clear to the tester. Now the other thing we want to do maybe is add a step, because we haven't told them yet what we're doing, what application are we launching. So we can go in here and add a step. It adds at the end. We can move it afterwards, and we'll say launch the MS Calc application. And the expected result would be the application opens. Okay, and then what we'll do is we're going to use the option to move that up. We'll bring that right to the top. Okay, so now we have our manual test case. Now an important thing to note is, at this point we haven't yet saved this back into Spira, the recording we've made. And you can tell that because the steps don't have ID numbers, they have this star. Now what we're going to do is do save, and that's going to save it to Spira. And it's going to save both the manual test steps, which we've already defined, but it will also save the automation as well. So if we do decide to automate this test case subsequently, it will already include that functionality. So I hit create. It's going to upload various files. Just accept that, and it's going to save it. And there you go, it's done. You'll know it's done because you'll see test step IDs will now appear here. And if we go back into view to browser, or we can just click on it right here since we have it up, we can go back to our test case list, and we'll see we have a new test case. Test case calculator 2 that I just created. And when I click on it, you'll notice that it includes the description, all the steps, the images, and the sample data. And I created about 7 steps there, and if you look at how much time that took, it was a fraction of the time it would have taken me to have created something this sophisticated with these screenshots in SpiraTeam natively. So it really is a big time saver. That's the first piece. That's how you would do the recording. The next thing we'll talk about is how you can use Rapise to do the playback of the manual test case and why that might be a good thing. Before I do that, any questions on the recording? No? Okay, great. So now that we've recorded our test case manually, the next thing we're going to do is play it back. So there's always the option to play it back within Spira. You can click on execute and play it back normally as you would, and that plays it back through the web interface. Now, there's 2 disadvantages of this functionality. One is it's in a web browser, so that it uses so it's in a web application, and as a result, its ability to handle screenshots and annotations is limited. So it can do the playback, but you're limited to just capturing an image. Sometimes, testers want to be able to describe visually in more detail, with more richness, what they did. And the second thing is, it's a web application, so it appears in a web browser, and you can minimize the web browser, you can make it smaller so it doesn't take as much screen, but it's not as optimized for doing that. So the other thing we can do with Rapise is we can play it back in a small window. So that way you can use one screen and have your application you're testing on the main screen and have Rapise to the side. So let's do that. So what we're going to do now is play it back. And so to do that, we will choose the release we're going to run it against. And we already created those releases in Spira, and we'll choose, let's say, release 2. And we're going to do execute manual. And now it's going to download the test run, and it's going to bring up the test wizard. And this is the test wizard. It looks very similar to the one in SpiraTeam. It has the step numbers at the top. It has the rich text editor where you can see the overall test case. And then underneath that, it has the test step description, the expected result, the sample data, and the actual result, which you can edit. And it is a full rich text editor with all the usual editing functions you'd expect. But the other nice feature we have is that we can minimize it. So if you want to be able to use one screen more effectively, you can choose this option, and that minimizes it into this small playback window. And if you have 2 screens and it's not a big problem, you can always put it back to the full size and then move it on to the second screen. So it gives you the choice of playback screen. Okay, so what we're going to do now is play back this test case. So what we'll do is we'll go through the application, and this is our MS Calc application. We'll pretend we've launched it, and I'll keep this maximized because it's a relatively small application we're testing, so I can do it both on once. And what I'm going to do is pass the first step. The expected result was +4, and that worked. Second step, hit the add button. Next step would be press 5. Yeah. Next step equals. Yeah. Next step 9. Well, we're going to pretend that we got this wrong. So we'll pretend that we actually got 8. Obviously, if you know addition, that's not true, but that's okay for today's demonstration. And so what we'll do is we'll pretend that failed. So in the actual result, I will enter, instead of seeing 9, we got the value 8. So, and then what we can do is add a screenshot to that. That might be helpful. So we'll choose this option here to add a picture. And it's helping me to select a screen region. So, or escape if I don't want to bother. So I'll just grab this screen area right here, like that. And I want to highlight the fact that this is the value, and that maybe it's the wrong one. So I could draw an arrow or a circle. I'll just put a rectangle around it, like that. There you go. Accept that. And there's my image with my screen capture and annotation. And the other thing I want to do is log a defect. And so you can log the defect directly from within Rapise. And I should mention that although I'm doing this right now for the case of a test case, Rapise does have that incident button available on the main ribbon. So if you want to log a defect during writing a test case or some automation, suddenly an idea comes to you that you need to log a defect. You don't have to go open up SpiraTeam in the browser, go log in. You can do it right from Rapise. So there is that option as well. In this case, we'll just choose bug. And the name will be bug on calculation functionality. Something like that. I've chosen to enter what happened. And again, we have a full rich text editor. We can adjust that. And then I'll choose release 2, and I hit save. And now I hit finish. Oh, actually I hit fail, sorry. Then I hit finish. That's fine. And there you go. It's done. And now if I go back to SpiraTest and I refresh my test case, you'll see it's failed. And if I scroll down, as you refresh here, you'll see that these passed and that step failed. If I click on the link, look at my test run, these are the defects, but first let me see the test run. So it's going to show me that it took 0.05 hours and that I ran it today. And it's going to basically tell me that the first 5 steps passed and the 5th step failed. But the nice thing is I've got my screenshot right here with my annotation included. Great. And then if I go to incidents, I can also then see that the defect. If I click on that, there's my defect, and it includes my association back to my test run. And if we had a requirement linked to the test case, it would also link back to the requirement. And now I can triage the defect in the same way we do normally. Perhaps assign it to a developer. And do what you would normally do in SpiraTeam. Oops, let me just add a priority. There you go. 5 hours, start tomorrow. There we go. Okay, there we go. So now we've assigned the defect. So that's how you would then play back the manual test case. Any questions? Okay, great. So that's how you do the manual testing. There's also 2 other things you can do as well, which are add-ons to this functionality. The first thing you can do is you might have what's called a hybrid test, and that's one where you want to be able to have some of the steps be automated and some of the steps be manual. As an example, maybe you want to actually launch the application automatically, so that when you play this back, that the person testing it doesn't have to do that. There's a way to do that within Rapise. What you can do is instead of having it be text, you can actually have it include a script. And you can put that script in instead of this. And instead what you can do, if I remember correctly, is so what we can do first of all is actually record it and then paste it in. So we'll go back to our automation script, and we can use the function global.doLaunch, and then we find where calculator is. So let me close calc. And it should be on my C drive. Where is it? Actually, it might be in system. Let me just find out where it is. Or I can watch something different. File location, perfect. I think it might be in the system drive. Yeah, there it is. Great, so we can have it open calc. I think it's calc exe, let me just make sure. Yep, calc exe. And what we can do now is we can actually embed that into the manual test case. And I should mention, all this is described in the help on the system. So if at any time you want to know how to use the functionality, the manual, the hybrid testing that we're doing now, or anything, it's all in the user guide. And the manual testing is actually stored in the features manual testing. And we talk here about manual recording. It's described to what I demonstrated earlier on with the recording. It also describes the playback and the logging of the defect. And in the semi-manual testing, which is where we're going to add an automated step in a manual test case, it's right here. So what we can do is create a function in Rapise in our user file to launch. So what we'll do is we'll take this test case and we'll basically say we're going to make a little function to launch MS Calc. Oops. And we'll take our script and we'll put that, take that out here, and put that right in the function. Playback. Now you also notice that there is this do play manual. This in the script tells Rapise to play a manual test case as opposed to an automated script. And so what we'll do now is we're simply going to put this line in here. Now we can still keep our description, but because it's going to be executed as code, we do have to put a comment indicator before it. So what we'll do is we'll take this function, launch MS-Calc, we go back to our test case, and we're going to replace this with a comment, and before this line, we'll paste it in with an @ symbol. And the @ symbol basically tells it to treat it as code, not as something human readable. So we'll do save local. And then we'll save that back to Spira. Make sure I got that right before I do that. Yep, that's correct. And go back here, let me close the help viewer. And what we'll do is save this back to Spira. It's going to upload the updated JS file and the user file and the steps. Okay, if we go back into Spira, we will see that change as well. So I go back to my test case and go in here. Let's have a look. Oh, hold on a second. Make sure it's. Oh, wait a second. We'll do that again. Launch MS-Calc. And then do save. Okay. There we go. So now we've got the script line, and we made that into a comment. So now that when we do play, and Calc's not running, it will actually first, actually 1 second, let me close that. Yeah, so that window gone. There you go. Actually, for this case, you have to do play that way. My mistake. What's going to happen is that first line of script tells you to play manual, and so what it does is it launches the calculation, and then it's going to go back to manual. So if you hit the manual play, it goes straight into manual only. If you do the play on the main screen, it's going to call that do play manual function, and that it knows to launch the calculator and then begin the test script. So now I've got my calculator loaded, and I can now do my manual testing. So that's useful where you want to do some setup application, perhaps preload some data automatically, and then you want to do your manual testing. So let me close that. And the reason why it did that was because if I go in here, I have this do play manual. What that means is when I hit the automated play, instead of launching the normal automation script, it knows to call this manual scenario, and this manual scenario then includes an automated step followed by some manual steps. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Okay.
So once you've added in the automated step into the process and saved it to Spira,
yes,
how would that affect running the test case through the Spira web application?
Gotcha. What will happen is, as far as Spira is concerned, this is just text. It's going to notice that you have this @ symbol. It's not going to do anything. So, for example, if we hit execute, it's going to just display that to the user. So when you're using it through Spira, it's just going to look maybe a little bit weird. You'll see that. And that's why we would recommend having like the comment underneath so that if you run it through Spira, you know that what you're actually going to do is launch MS-Calc. It's just basically a hint to Rapise.
Okay, I got you. That makes sense.
And what that's doing is it's basically doing some kind of setup, or you could be the reverse situation. I mean, I showed you a situation where the first step was automated and then it went manual, but you might have the reverse situation where maybe there's some automation you want to do, but the setup requires a lot of human interaction to get it ready, and so you can make the first 3 or 4 steps manual and then finish with some automated steps. You can do that as well. And then the last piece, though, which is interesting, is that if I want to run this as a purely automated test, I would need to then comment this out, because this is for manual testing, and this basically is for like a hybrid test. If I play this through an automated play button, it's still going to launch the manual playback. So if I decide I want to completely automate this, I would comment this out, and then I can record my normal automation script and play it back as normal. Then I still have the option to play it manually by going back to manual steps and doing the play execute manual. Basically, the way it works is this execute manual, this will always play the test manually. This playback here, this will play the script back. And if it sees this step, it knows it's a hybrid test, launch the manual wizard, but run any automated parts of it. If that's commented out, then it will know just to play whatever code you've recorded. And so, for example, what you might do is if I wanted to record an automation script, but still have it report back into SpiraTest, I can record and learn the old-fashioned way, or the automated way. It's not the old-fashioned. And you can record it. So, for example, 2 plus 3 equals 5, hit finish, and that's going to build you a normal script like this. One of the things you might want to do is verify that the value actually was 5 and have that report back to SpiraTest. You can link that then to a manual step. So what you could do, so that when you play it back through SpiraTest, it will report back the status, in which case what you can do is, let me have the verify step, I didn't do that. Let me go back here, and I'll do a verify, finish, oops, okay, finish. And now what you might want to do is say, well, when that reports back, I really want to let it know that that succeeded, that step did. So you can go back into your manual test case, and you can just grab these step numbers, and you can say, I want that, copy it. When you click on it, it automatically copies to the clipboard as a time saver, and now you can go back in here and just paste it in. Oops, let me do that again. That one, and there it is. There you go. And so that now tells it when SpiraTest plays this back through Rapise Launcher, the automated launching tool, it's going to know that from that token that it needs to link that result back to that test step. So that's one of the features we've added. Now, in the future, depending on user feedback, one of the things we're thinking about adding is ways to make this even more seamless so that you could actually have a pick list of the manual steps directly in the code window, and you could then drag and drop that step into here. And so depending on the feedback we get from users around the manual testing, and I'd be curious to know people's on the phone's thoughts. Some of the ideas would be having increased ways to link the manual steps, which are over here, into the automation, so that you can have it report back. Any thoughts on that? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. That was the presentation for manual testing with Rapise. Obviously, once you replay it back through Rapise, it's going to have the information back into SpiraTest. So you have all the power of the reporting so that when you go back into your test cases, you do have your test runs. So if you go back into it, actually that's the wrong one, this one. And there's our test result. And you go back into reporting, you have all the usual test metrics. We all the defect, got a test result. And so that way, Rapise just becomes another tool in your portfolio to basically execute test cases, record test cases. And really, the main advantage for it is the time saving. When you go back into that and look at the script that you created, that took about 30 seconds to record all those steps. Would have taken probably 10, 15 minutes to have made that equivalent test case, especially when you have lots of different widgets to click on and different icons. And one of the other advantages this gives you is that, let's say your application changes, you're in an agile environment, and your user interface is changing every week, every couple of sprints, you can go back in here and re-record your test case really quickly. And especially in an agile environment, the fact that the step names may be not as nice as if they were written by someone by hand, is less important because the application is changing so quickly that you can build the test case so much faster that every time your developer updates your UI, you can just record it and republish it. And so that way you're not having to go back in over hundreds of test cases and make all these changes manually. You can just basically take the new deployed app, run through the main script, and send and publish it out. Any other questions?
Hi, I have a question about actually installation of Rapise and integration with SpiraTeam.
Sure.
Let's say you download the free trial version, and how do you start? So you install the Rapise, and how do you set up integration with SpiraTeam?
Okay, that's a great question. And some of that I did before the demo just to make it a bit easier, but I can definitely go through that with you. So what you would do, so first of all, on the SpiraTeam side, is you basically would go into the system, and at the system level, you first make sure that you have the automation engine set up. So you go into the administration section, you scroll down to test automation, and you basically will make sure that the Rapise engine is listed as active right here. And that's, if it's not added, you can add it manually. On all modern installations of SpiraTeam, it's pre-installed. If you've upgraded from an older version, like version 2 or version 3 of SpiraTeam, it's possible you won't have it, in which case you just go in here and add it, and choose Rapise as the token, and Rapise as the engine. Typically, that's not necessary on most modern installations. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then what you'll do...
So, the license for Rapise, would you enter the license for Rapise? And, is it in a SpiraTeam or it's in a Rapise application?
It's in Rapise itself, right. So the way SpiraTeam is the central repository, and for licensing Rapise, you go in to Rapise itself. When you install it, when you install the trial, you get a 30-day free trial without any activation. After the 30 days, there's an activation code for a second 30 days. After those 60 days, you need to go into the activation section, and basically here you would then enter the activation code from our website, put it in, and it then activates against this machine. And then further on down the road, let's say your machine is going to be wiped because you're getting a new laptop or a new VM, and you don't want this license to be used up. It's very important that you deactivate the license first. Once you do that, that deregisters the license from that machine, and then you get a new activation code on our website, and you can put that new activation code into the second installation. And that lets you move the license between machines. That's very important. So once you've activated Rapise and you've added the automation host, then what you'll do is, in your project, you need to add the automation hosts. This isn't needed just to record the test, but it is needed if you want to do playback on different machines. And so you'll add an automation host for every machine that's going to play back a Rapise test automatically. And that's so you can then schedule it using SpiraTeam. And my machine is called TARDIS, and if I go into Rapise, when you first set it up, you'll go into Options, Tools, Spira Connection, and it's very important. That's where you put the URL into your SpiraTeam server, which is the same as the one here. You will then make sure that you have a login and password that can connect to that project that you're interested in. And the last thing is you do need what's called a repository. And this is a working folder where it's going to store all of the test cases in Rapise that are version controlled. So let me explain that a little bit more, because that's very important. When you first create a Rapise test, you have the option of either saving it locally or saving it into SpiraTeam. If you save it locally, it's going to go into the My Documents, and it's going to go under the My Rapise Tests, right here. And those are for test cases that are things you're just messing about with, just tests that you're using to learn the system. Once you're going to start using SpiraTeam to store them, instead of storing them there, they're going to be stored into a centralized location, for example, C Spira repository. And that's where all your test cases will live. And when they go uploaded and downloaded to and from SpiraTeam, they're going to be stored here locally. And we do suffix them with the test case number to guarantee they're unique across projects. So you can have the same test case in multiple projects, but they'll be guaranteed unique with that test case number on the back. And then once you've connected it, you'll press the connection, it's fine, you hit save, okay. Let's say I want to record an automated test, not a manual one. It's the same thing I did today. So you've already set up SpiraTeam, you've got your login, you've got your password, you've tested the connection, you've got the license activated, and now what you'll do is go create test. And I want to create a new automated test. You choose the folder in SpiraTeam, you choose new test case, and you can create a new folder if you need one. And then what we'll do is auto test 1, OK. And the only thing you have to do is, right from the beginning, decide, is it a mobile test or a non-mobile test? Mobile works a bit differently because you have to do mobile profiles and you connect to the mobile devices. And we're going to talk about mobile in a future webinar. So basically, assuming it's not mobile, it's going to be desktop application, manual testing, or it's going to be web testing. Any of those other options, you choose manual scripting mode. If it's going to be mobile, you must choose mobile right now. If this is a test case that you don't want to version control in Spira, maybe it's just for messing about with, it's just to learn the system, you can always got the option to create locally. But we would recommend if this is a test case you're going to use repeatedly and share with people in Playback, you should use Spira. So we'll choose that option. And now I've got my test case, and now I can begin testing. Does that help?
Yes, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other questions about Rapise manual testing or anything about Spira integration? Okay, great. Well, if there's no other questions, we'll end early. Thank you everyone very much for attending this webinar. If you have any ideas about future webinars on either Rapise, SpiraTeam, Chronodesk, Remote Launch, or any of the tools on our website, please let us know. Our plan is to focus on SpiraTeam for our next webinar. Please watch our website for the announcement. We'll probably do these on Thursdays mornings and afternoons for different times, for different time zones. And again, if you've got any ideas, let us know. But the next one we are planning on doing will be on SpiraTeam Agile Planning using the planning board. And the one after that will be Rapise mobile testing. So those are the next two in the list. And
sorry.
Yeah?
Could you show me automatic test running?
Sure.
Okay.
No problem. We've got time. Not a problem at all. So we go back. And what we'll do is, since I have Calculator running, if it's okay, I'll just do the Calc application.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we'll do is we'll record and learn. And we'll choose Calc. I'll just do 2. I'll actually, let me pause. Let me hear it because it says 52, which is not what actually I did. So resume. Plus 3 equals 5. And I'll verify the value. So there's my automation script. Hit finish. Yeah, it's doing. There you go. Go away. So there's my automation script. And I also can launch Calculator, or I can have it running in the background. Just because in the interest of time, I'm going to launch Calc. Keep it up. But you could add the do launch step if you wanted. So now I've got my manual test. First thing I want to do, sorry, my automated test. First thing I want to do is make sure it works. So I'll just hit play. That looks pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'll save this. Save the Spira. That's fine. It's just telling me where it's going to record everything and store everything in SpiraTeam. We'll say OK. And basically, it's now saved back into Spira. If I go back to testing, and the test cases, I'll see my auto test. If I click on it, you notice there's no steps, because I didn't record any steps. There's no manual script, but there is an automation script. And that tells you that it's been saved into Spira. And this gives just some summary information right here. Okay, great. Now that we have our test case stored into Spira, we'll have to schedule it. So now we go back to test sets. And test sets are a way of scheduling tests. So I choose new, and I'll call it Rapise demo or calc test. And then what I do is I add my test case to it. And I could add more than one test case if I had them. I only have one in this case. And this is where the automation host comes in. So I need to tell it to run on a machine. Now for today's demo, I'm going to run it on the same machine that has Rapise installed and I've created it on. But more realistically, what you'll typically want to do is deploy this onto different VMs, because you may have a Windows 8 VM, a Windows 7 VM, maybe other platforms, different browsers, and you want to make sure that same test works on all those different platforms. And Rapise is now available in the cloud, so it could be on an Amazon machine that you provisioned. So that's another option as well. Once that is done, you can schedule it. So it's very important you choose the machine. In this case, we only have the local machine just for today's demo. So I'll choose that machine, and I want to run it today, and I want to run it. I'll say I want to run it at 10 o'clock, which is already passed, so it will guarantee it runs. And I hit save. Oh, actually, I also want to run against release 2. We'll tell it. That's fine. So it's now scheduled. Now then, what you do is on the machine that's running it, it's not running currently, you install a second tool called Rapise Launcher. And this is the automation agent, and its job is to basically sit there and run the test. And it connects to SpiraTeam constantly and polls it and does the interaction. I'm going to close Rapise down altogether. So this is Rapise Launcher right here. And this will share the information that you've already entered. So I've already entered the name of the machine, the URL, all the information in Rapise. The launching tool already has access to that, and already will have that configured. And I've configured to poll every 5 minutes. In a real environment, that may be sufficient. Maybe you want to make it every 2 minutes. Entirely up to you. I also told you to capture screenshots. That's another option you have. The other thing is I told you to run tests that are overdue, which is good in this case because I've set it for a time in the past. You can turn that on or off if you wish. And so it's going to check in about 4 minutes time. It's going to check. Just to speed things up for today's demo, I'm going to tell it to look right now. But in a real life situation, you wouldn't have to interact with it at all. You let it sit there on the machine. It runs all the time. You don't have to do anything. So I hit force poll. And it's going to start right now. It brings up calc. And it may fail because I left a 5 in it. So the value won't match. It might match. Let's have a look. And there you go. It ran it. Now if we go back into SpiraTeam, there's our test run. Oh, it did pass. If I go back, there's what happened. It gives you, and because it's an automated test, it's a bit more information. It gives you the machine name, it gives you the location where it's running, and then each of the steps is listed here, and what happened. And it gives you the playback as well. And if you go to the attachments, it's also included the steps. So there's the first step, second step, third step, fourth step. So you can verify it. If you actually look at it actually did pass in the end, but it's sort of the fact that the number equals the same, but some of the steps were not correct because I left a 5 in the calculator tool. So actually it would help you diagnose what's going on. If, for example, the answer came back different, I could have gone back and realized, oh, I left a 5 in the calculator and I didn't have a code to clean it out. My test isn't very good, and that's the reason why. So you've got the traceability and the recording stored in SpiraTeam. And if this test case was linked to a requirement, you'd also see the requirement change status. So for example, in the project, maybe I have a requirement that MS Calc needs to do addition. That's my requirement. And I can now click on that requirement, and I can now decide that really we're going to have both a manual test case and automated test cases that cover that. And so we'll take these two and that one, hit add, and now we've got our test coverage. So that way you can have both manual and automated tests provide a composite coverage of your requirement. And if I go back to the home page, again, it's going to pop up all the graphs and charts so we can see exactly what's going on. There's our defect logged. And there's our one requirement with 2 open defects. So everything's sort of populated nicely from the automation and the manual. Any questions?
I was wondering, why would I choose Rapise Wise Selenium, except what it's integrated with SpiraTeam?
Okay, that's a great question. And we do integrate with Selenium as well. So you can, if you have SpiraTeam, you can use Selenium. Selenium is great for web testing. Rapise has functionality for manual testing, for mobile testing, for desktop applications, for web services, for Java, Flash, Flex. It also has, the other thing that gives you, I think, Rapise a little bit of a difference is that when you're dealing with Selenium, you're handwriting all the code. With Rapise, if you've got a testing team that perhaps doesn't want to write all the code by hand, Rapise gives you the ability to build the script from interacting with the application. You've still got the option to modify the script after the fact and change it, but it's not as if you have to record it step by step, create it step by step manually. So it gives you the ability to, I think, build tests faster than if you use Selenium. But if you've got a team that really knows Selenium well and likes it, then that's obviously another option that SpiraTeam works quite happily with as well.
Sorry. Hello?
Hello, yeah?
We can test the web application with the Rapise?
Yes, absolutely. If you want, as an example, I did the calculator application just because it's a bit smaller on the screen, so I can show it more easily in the demo. If we go with a web application, look at this. Go back to Rapise. I can go back, create new test, automated test, new test case, sample web test. Hit OK. Go from Spira. And now what you do is, let me go back to my web page. Let me close some of these windows. And now what we'll do is we'll use record and learn. And instead of choosing the calculator, we choose the browser, hit select. And I'll record that instead. So I'm logging in. Oh, we do librarian. There we go. And log in. And in terms of the comparison with Selenium, as I mentioned, unlike Selenium, where we would have to find these objects on the page, have to write the script code line by line, it's building that for you. And then you can look on the list of books, and you can verify that's the right number value. That's fine, and we'll verify the text. Okay, and then we'll log out, and we hit finish. And the other thing that's a little bit different is Rupes uses what we call objects that are not exact, but they're not the same things on the page. They're like a pointer. So, for example, we see here we've got the book management link, the login link. These are pointers to different elements on the page. And when you write your script, you're writing it against these abstractions rather than the physical object. So if your page changes, you don't have to go through hundreds of lines of test script and change everything. You can just change here what it points to, and then actually it will update the script based on that. And actually, one of the nice features coming in our next version in 3.1 is a built-in object spy for web, which will let you view through any of the major browsers that we integrate with. It will let you interact with the HTML behind the page and dynamically build the queries and test them, giving you even more power over that. That's coming out in 3.1, which is our next version. So that's how you would record it. And then to play it back, it works the same way I showed you with the calc application. You just hit play, and it will play back to the browser. And that's an automated web test. And for mobile, it works a very similar way. With mobile, you just connect the physical device, or you start up the Android or iOS simulator, and you can then interact with that. And it deploys the application into the mobile device or simulated device, and Rapise lets you play it back as well. So whether you're using desktop applications like Calculator, Windows applications, web services, or mobile, it all works the same way. And all of them can report back into SpiraTeam as well. Any questions?
No, okay.
Okay, great. Well, as I said, thanks everyone very much for attending. The next webinar will be on SpiraTeam Agile Planning, and the one after that will be on Rapise mobile testing. So if you're interested in that, please let us know, and we will invite you to that. And this recording will be published on our website and on YouTube in the next few days. And thank you very much for attending. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, Adam.
Thanks. Thank you.
Italy.